So we talk now about is the company conservatively financed? It's a mouthful. Conservatively financed, and again, I bring back Stephen Jarislowski in his book. He talks about that, and over the thing that he says. I don't like company that are overly in depth, too much in depth, and he says it suggests an hypertrophy of the ego. I always find that phrase very very funny because yeah, you can have a bad time in a company, but if you try to chew too much, to buy to invest too much, and you go into debt to do that, you saw what we can see your neighbors. Everybody try to catch on with the neighbor. If with the company, sometimes the leader can want to make an acquisition and is stubborn in his ways, so he will go deep into debt, and that's not a good sign. So for him, the first thing he will look at the balance sheet and look at the way it is financed at this moment. So without further ado, we go back and we look at the companies that we have looked at since the beginning, and we'll see if they are conservatively financed or not. So we begin with the first company, and it is the CIBC Bank. The CIBC Bank has a 3.3 billion because it is in thousands, so it's 3 billion.3. If you That's the debt, but to have a ratio, to have an idea of the debt, you divide it by the shareholders' equity in the company in the balance sheet. So it is 3,300 over 23,000 million, so $23 billion of shareholders' equity. So 3 billion over 23, it gives you a debt to equity ratio of 0.14. That's not very much debt. You have 14 cents of debt for $1 of shareholders' equity. So that's nothing. That's okay. Royal Banks, $9 billion in debt, $71 billion in shareholders' equity. We have the same ratio, two banks, two competitors, same industry, 0.14. Alphabet, companies of Google, parent company, $3 billion in debt on $139 billion of shareholders' equity on the balance sheet. It's a 3%, so Google is not in debt. So Apple, this one may seem surprising. They have $75 billion in long-term debt. And if you take that onto the $128 billion of shareholders' equity, it's a ratio. That's not a bad ratio, but it's 59%. So 59 cents of debt over $1 of shareholders' equity. But we hear all the time that they are swimming in cash. They have $250 billion of cash overseas. Yeah, that's exactly that. So they don't want to take that money and put it in the United States because they did not want to pay the income tax on that foreign money that they earn. But now with the Donald Trump, and they are supposed to change the law and to give those companies a break on the income tax they will pay. I've just read that Apple has agreed to pay $30 billion worth of income tax, but they will be able to take that money home. And I will not be surprised if next year that column here should be near zero because they don't need that money, but they had borrowed it in order to pay some dividends and to make some investment. And I'm sure they had as collateral that money that was overseas, and I'm sure they are not paying a big interest rate on those loans. All right, Ford now. Ford has $93 billion in debt. And on $29 billion of shareholders' equity. So they have $3. So we can see the ratio now. If you're not familiar with that, you can see the ratio here: $3 of debt for $1 of shareholders' equity. So that's up there. Toyota has $9 billion on 10, so it's 1-on-1. So that's okay. That's a ratio that is more if you compare Toyota to Ford. So we have seen two things right now. We have seen the earning per share. Toyota was much more stable than Ford, and now we see the debt, and the debt of Toyota is much more under control than the one of Ford. So it gives us a good sign. Costco has $4 billion on 12. It's 37. That's okay. Amazon has 15 on 19. It's higher because they are investing. You remember about the moat, they are heavily investing, so they have a higher ratio. Bombardier has a $8.7 billion of debt at the last thing I have watched, and they have minus 5 billions of shareholders' equity. That's a negative. It is technically, I would not say bankrupt, but it is technically they have more debt than they have shareholder retained earnings. And I will take that opportunity and we will look, because I'm giving you my numbers, and at the same time I will show you where I'll go to watch them and you'll be able to. So that's the picture of the intelligent investor. I will push on pause and I will come back. My preferred website is Morningstar. We go to morningstar.ca. You push the stock onglet tab, and then we will know the Bombardier BBD.B. And then when I'm there, I don't care about the movement right now. I go into financials, and you can have income statement and balance sheet. Click on balance sheet, and you have the assets. If you don't, I don't want to see everything, so you can just tone it down a bit. And I have the total of assets, and then I have the liabilities, okay, and I have the current and the non-current, and I will have the long-term. Long-term debt is just here. So I have my long-term debt that is at $8.7 billion, as you can see. And then you have the stockholders' equity, and we can see that it was at 1.3 billion in 2012, 2.4 billion, and then from 2012 to 2014 it went almost to zero at 42 million. 2015 it was a minus 4 billion, and now it's at minus 5 billion. So that's where I take my numbers. I will come back again in a couple of months to see the new numbers, but it is what it is at this moment. So I was a little curious because usually I take my numbers at year end, but you can go here and just instead of annual, you go quarterly. So you go and you see the last quarter. And if I go and see the last quarter, this is September 2017, because it does Bombardier, and it always, I would say, interesting. So Bombardier, the long-term debt here, if you can see, we are now at 8.8 billion, a little higher than it was at the end of 2016. And the stockholders' equity is now at minus 5 point almost $6 billion in the negative. And finally, we go with Couche-Tard, down $3 billion of debt in versus 5 billion of shareholders' equity. That gives us a debt-to-equity ratio of 0.6 or 60% or 0.6%. So that's it for we don't go in depth about that. It just gives you an idea, a sense of if the company is well or not well financed. It doesn't mean you have to run, but like Stephen Jarislowski said, when it is too much in debt and having problems, you can play with the stock, but it will not make for a good long-term investment, but maybe more of a speculation thing.